Hola, Bonjour, Guttentag, or however you say hello in your language. And today, I'm going to be showing you how to build beautiful pathways in your Minecraft world like the one you see behind me. Now, please note that this will not be a block by block tutorial, but instead I will be showing you some of the tips and tricks I have for building this kind of thing and what my thought processes are when I'm building such a path. Now, in today's episode, I'm going to show you how to turn this into something like this, and eventually to something like this. Okay, before we begin, I'd like to talk about certain things that you might want to keep in mind when building this. The first thing you'd want to take into account is the block palette that you'd like to choose. And that depends on your biome. Now, you would not want to use cactus in a oak forest biome, for example, and you would not want to put just regular oak trees into let's say a desert or a mesa build. It really just depends on where you're building as to what blocks you choose. And you also want to use different color blocks. Like, for example, I decided to use dark oak here for the swing, while the trees are just regular oak wood. And this creates a little bit of contrast and your eye gets drawn to that darker spot. Now, I did the same thing with these planters as well, and these blue flowers. The idea behind that was to create a point of interest for your eye to look at, and it makes it a little more interesting. Another thing to keep in mind is variance. For example, I used spruce fencing up there, but I did not use spruce fencing for these little shrubs, bushes, tiny trees, whatever you want to call them. And that's because I tried it, and it didn't look right. And so I decided to go with the oak instead, because it matched the biome that I was going for, which was like an oak type forest, and it worked well with the leaf typing and all the flower colors. And also try to keep in mind that you don't want to have your builds too busy, because otherwise your eyes will go crazy trying to figure out what to focus on and what specifically to look at. For example, I did not go overboard with the points of interest. You have these flower pots right here, and then you have the swing is another one, and then back here you have the well. And you don't usually see all three of them at the same time, and that's important because it makes it a little bit easier to look at and more pleasurable. It's eye candy, if you care to use that phrasing. When building your pathways, you want to make sure that you have a natural curve, especially with natural looking pathways like this. And you want to give a reason to why it's curving that way. For example, over here we have this giant tree in the way, and that naturally would cause the path to curve because there are not very many paths that go directly through a tree. And over here it curves a little bit to this way in order to give your eye like a natural directive towards these flower planters. Alright, so now that we've got those key points that I'd like you to keep in mind out of the way, let's go ahead and get into how to build custom paths in Minecraft. Alright, so I started with clearing off that really straight path that I had made earlier, and I started with defining where I want the path to go, like its shape and how it curves. And then I went in and added some coarse dirt into the path. This really helps bring out some texture and just give it more personality and interest. I also decided to put in a bunch of bushes, and I just used oak leaves for this. And it's a great way to include some natural foliage. I also decided to add a bunch of colored flowers in order to give just a little pop of color. Now, I highly suggest that you do not go overboard with the amount of leaves and how much bone meal you use, because there's a point when it starts to look a little bit more messy than you probably intend. I also decided to add a well in order to put one more point of interest into this build. Now, I tried many designs with this well, and I finally settled on just a plain simple well with no roof or anything like that. So now we have a very simple natural pathway. Alright, so that path was pretty good, but there's also some things that we can do to improve it and make it even better. Alright, so to first improve upon this build, I decided to build a tree where that natural curve is. Again, this is referring to the points of interest and why I made the path curve the way it did. And now I apologize, there was an error in rendering this footage, so there are some dark, unrendered spots in the path I decided to add a bunch of trees in order to make it feel more like the woods. I really wanted an oak forest type theme in this build, and so I decided to go with trees that would represent that. I also decided to add in some little shrubs into this build in order to give some height variance and keep things interesting. Just a side note, but if you guys would like a custom tree tutorial, let me know in the comment section below. In regards to the path, I decided to add oak wood into the path in order to give a little more variance, and I decided to move the well because I felt it was conflicting too much with the other points of interest I had, that being the tree with the swing on it and the flower planters that I am adding now. Now I decided to add blue flowers into the planters because there wasn't a lot of blue in this, and I really wanted to add just a pop of color. Alright, so here we have the finished product. Now, please take note that this was a result of a lot of trial and error and me testing different things. Like, after all, you saw I moved the wishing well in order to help clear up some points of interest in this build. I strongly encourage that you guys try this out in like a super flat world like what I've done here, just to get your ideas down on a Minecraft build. It really does help in the long run. Anyway, if you enjoyed, be sure to comment below what kinds of videos you would like to see next. I'd be happy to build your suggestions, and if you have any specific questions, feel free to ask them in the comment section below. And anyway, I'll see you in the next video. Bye! I'm gonna be breaking the fourth wall here. This video took me a really long time to edit, like a whole lot longer than I thought it was. If you could just leave your support, that would be much appreciated. Anyway, bye!